All right, Shalom. I just wanted to do a little video real quick, regarding, certain, comments I've been getting, and certain aspects of, things I was talking about regarding the whole teenage myth thing, which, for those that don't know, excuse me if you can't hear me well, it's windy out here. Just put my hat on real quick, actually. There we go. Should be better. My beast hat right there. Shout out to anybody who knows who that is. But anyway, guys are on there like, well, how can people who are under 18 be adults? It's like, well, wait a second, though. The word adult means a person who is in between, who is sexually mature. That's what the word adult means according to the English dictionary. Okay, so going by the dictionary, what the dictionary says, it says that. And then, as I said, by logical deduction, how could we say that people who can, give birth to children are not adults? How can children give birth to other children? It just doesn't make logical sense. So I'm probably going to name this video something along the lines of teenagers are adults or something like that. Okay, I'm going to go over reasons why. Okay, for one, I know myself. When I was, 15, 14, I was most certainly a mature, responsible, young adult, right? I could most certainly do things on my own. But the reason why for example, why wasn't I driving a car then? Well, because I was legally not capable of doing so. As I said, it's, I know there's a man out there, I believe his name is Pastor Anderson, right? Steven Anderson, a popular Christian pastor. Y'all should probably know who that is. But he made a statement and say, oh, well, if teens were capable of doing, such things as having jobs or, driving or, living on their own, well, they would be out doing those things. It's like, no, why? Because if they're legally restricted from doing so, just like they're legally, as I said, legally, I say this, because anything that's legal or illegal is just a simple scribble on a piece of paper by a rich man. It's all based upon a rich man's philosophy, saying, you obey this so it will hurt you. That's all the law is. Anything legal or illegal is all bullshit that a society makes up. So you cannot use legality as an argument in a debate with facts. You can't do that. That's like if I said, well, it's a law that unicorns exist. Then you bring up and say there's no scientific evidence that unicorns exist. But then if I say, but it's the law says that unicorns exist. So by the logical deduction, you must say, oh, okay, well, unicorns exist then because, the law says they do. But wait, what is the law? Oh, and they don't know. They have to think about it because nobody ever thought about it. Just, well, it's something I know to repeat because that's what I've been told. Okay? So it's like, well, wait a second. That's as illogical, saying, well, if teens were capable of doing those things, they would be out doing it. No, they can't because they're legally restricted. How could they sign contracts if they're legally restricted from signing contracts? How could they own a home if they're legally not capable of owning a home? How could they drive if they are not capable of gaining access to their own vehicles? All right? They are, as I said, legally restricted from these activities. That's why they're not out doing it. It's just as ridiculous as if I was to make a statement and say, well, there's an abused dog, right? The dog's chained, has a leash around its neck that's chained to the doghouse. It's like, well, the dog can't be being abused that bad because if it was, it would just run away. Well, wait a second. How could the dog run away if there's a leash around its neck that's tied to the doghouse? You see how ridiculous it is? And matter of fact, in my, may I say, plan fit, that wouldn't be a correct word to use. Excuse me for my stutter. Sometimes I have a difficulty saying certain words, so excuse that. Hey, Moses wasn't a man of much speech, right? Moses had problems saying words, and that's in the scriptures. That's why he had Aaron, his brother, to go with him and to speak before Pharaoh. Okay? The scriptures say the Lord has chosen the weak and the foolish ones of the world to confound the wise. Just a side note. Anyway, teens are most certainly capable of doing these things. Okay, in fact, I know somebody, I'm not going to, name any names, but I know somebody who at 16, they were already out, having jobs, right, living on their own, drinking alcohol at 16 years old. Why could they not do that? If they can prove that they are mentally capable of handling this responsibility of this action that they're doing, why can they not do it? Why are they restricted from it? Hell, I was most certainly, am mature enough to drink alcohol responsibly. Why can I not do it? Why should I be restricted from it? Nobody knows. It's just, well, that's the law. Well, wait, well, what is the law? And they don't know. It's just something that everyone knows to repeat because it sounds cool. All right? Anything that's legal or illegal is simply a scribble on a piece of paper by a rich man saying, you do this or I will hurt you. I'll send my armed thugs who call themselves law enforcement, and they'll, come in and hurt you if you don't obey my commands. Right? But Americans be like, oh, well, I'm free. Well, how the hell are you free if you have rulers, they call themselves lawmakers, and they get to control every aspect of your life by merely coming up with an idea that, well, I don't want people to have Starbucks coffee, so let's make a law that says you can't have Starbucks coffee. So people will go around saying, oh, yeah, well, that's the law. You can't have that Starbucks coffee. It's like, but wait, it's not hurting anybody. Just like, say, for an example, at 16, why can't you play cigarettes? I mean, lottery. Why can't you play the lottery at 16? I mean, hell, you can drive a car, literally risk your life driving down to the gas station to purchase the ticket, but you can't play the ticket because you're not an adult yet. Oh, wait, but how are they not an adult? They look like an adult, they act like an adult. They look like adults, they act like adults. In every aspect, they are adults, just not legally. Because again, legally, it's all just based off of bullshit that some rich man made up. Or, in this country, America, Mystery Babylon the Great, a whole, group of rich men came up with those ideas. They call themselves the lawmakers, as in, they have some type of divine right where they can control everybody's life by writing scribbles on pieces of paper. Which again, they call them laws, which are just, threats of violence, saying you do this, I'll hurt you. That's all anything legal or illegal is. Which again, I want to give a shout out to a book named The Most Dangerous Superstition by Larkin Rose. All right, phenomenal book, 9 out of 10 rating for me. Read that book, life-changing book right there. Okay. But anyway, back to what I was saying. I mean, what is the morality of restricting somebody who's 16 years old from playing the lottery if they can prove that they're responsible in doing so? Why should they be restricted from these activities? And nobody knows. They just know to repeat, well, it's the law. That's all they know to repeat. There's no proof, no evidence, no reasoning, no fact, no logic. It's just, well, that's what somebody else says. That's why I believe it. It's like, okay. It's like, well, what if I was to say that unicorns exist? Or that, that the earth is flat, right? But then you say, oh, that's ridiculous. But wait, what if I declare that it is a law that you have to believe that? Will you now do it then? Say, no, well, that's ridiculous. It's like, okay then, so how can we say, well, it's the law that you cannot engage in sexual activity until you're this arbitrary number? Everyone will believe that, though. I mean, well, why is it then, right, if teens are not capable of engaging in sexual activities until the magic number of 18, all right, which is, again, 18 is 666, 6 plus 6 equals 12, 12 plus 6 equals 18, 18 is 666, that's why they picked number 18. But if they're not capable of engaging in sexual activities, well, why the hell is it that 80% of teens under 18 are engaging in sexual activities on an almost daily basis if they are not capable of doing so? Again, that's 70 to 80% of all teens. And in another aspect as well, if you look up on Google, if you Google why do we call teens teens, look that up. You can do this yourself. Why do we call teenagers teenagers? And it will tell you we call them teens because their age ends with the word teen. So that's why we call them teens. It's like, okay then, so why do we call 18-year-olds and 19-year-olds, why do we call them adults if they have the word teen in the number of their age? But that's why we call teens teens, though. So these are adults, but yet they have the word teen in the number of their age. Which, again, we call teens teens because they have the word teen in the number of their age. You see, it's absolutely illogical, but nobody ever thought about that before. But you know what I did, though? You know why? Because I am different, right? Hey, look, I'll dazzle you and I'll play tricks on your mind, just like, what is that cat? Just like the Flat Earth Man said, right? Which I like that guy. His music's pretty cool, but, my mind is different, right? The scriptures speak about to you what's given to know more than what a man can know, right? Which I'm not claiming that I don't mean to flex, but hey, look, I clearly know some shit, man. I'll say that, all right, for, lack of better words. But anyway, get back to what I was saying. If somebody can prove that they are ready to work at 14, why can they not work at 14? Why must they be restricted another 2 years? What logic does that mean? I mean, what logic is this based upon? If they can prove that they are ready to handle this responsibility, why can they not do it? Why must one be forcibly restricted from these activities based on how old they are? And nobody knows. You just know, well, that's the law. That's it's like, okay, so the only proof of why we believe these things is because of something that's made up. It's like, what logic does that make? It's like, what if I said that 1,000 years ago there was an alien colony that lived under the ocean? It's like, oh, there's no evidence of that. Well, what if I declare it's a law that we all have to believe that? It's like, oh, yeah, so now that makes it true. Utterly ridiculous, but this is how everybody thinks. Everybody thinks this way. All right, nobody actually can logically think about it. It's like, well, how are 17-year-olds kids? I mean, they look like adults, they act like adults in every way. It's just, well, how are they not adults? They can have children. I mean, hell, I don't know any kids that can have children. I only know that as last time I checked, only adults can give birth to children. So how can, if teens are kids, right? If teens are children, well, how can they give birth to kids? How can children give birth to other children? That's illogical, absolutely ridiculous. All right, and if you do the research on it, you would know that this whole concept of a teenager, right, or an adolescent, has only existed for 100 years. All right, it was made up by a name, I believe it was G. Stanley Hall. Go on Wikipedia and look up a man named G. Stanley Hall. And by the way, while I'm also on the topic of that, I wanted to give a shout out to a book here, right, which will give you much great information on the subject. And that is, let's pull it up here. That is Teen 2.0 by Robert Epstein. Once again, that's Teen 2.0 by Robert Epstein. Okay? Phenomenal book. Okay, it goes into all the history. It's unbelievable the amount of information that's in that book regarding the subject, man. It goes into the history, why they did it, and how we can change it. It's like, say, for example, somebody will say, well, maybe, yeah, I hear what you're saying, but I mean, my team might not be responsible enough to handle their own life. Okay, fair enough, but let's do this. What if we come up with this idea? How about we come out with a test, right? A government distributed test to young people of any age, and the test has every aspect of life. Love life, so-called legal life, everyday self-hygiene, everything that you can think of. Exclude history, because that has no importance to do of knowing the past, or much of that stuff, because most of what you're told in school you forget when you leave school anyway. You know what I'm saying? But how about we come out with this test that tests a human being and every aspect of things that they need to know to be an adult, and if they can pass it, then they can gain adulthood. Okay, and this can be given to people who are, say they are ready to be adults. All right, if they can pass this test, well, then let's let them be adults then. What logic does it make to restrict a human being just because of how old they are? And it's funny, because any other group of people, this would be called discrimination, but this one group of people, it's, oh, no, that has to be, right? If you're not 18, you're not an adult. But the same person will say, oh, well, age doesn't matter. But wait a second, well, how do you become an adult at this age if you said age doesn't matter? How does that make any sense? Right? And it's funny, because, I saw a video once, man. I believe it was the Dave Ramsey show, I believe. I could be mistaken. They were talking about, right, a 40-year-old man who got with an 18-year-old. And they were saying, oh, yeah, this is all wonderful, right? She's just a young woman that wants to be with an old man. That's all fine. But if a 20-year-old man wants to get with a 17-year-old, oh, that's some type of, creepiness right there. Well, for what logic is this being based off of? And you see, it's not based on nothing. It's just based on, well, that's the legality. In other words, a bunch of rich men wrote scribbles on pieces of paper. They called them laws, but all they are threats of violence. And that's why we believe it, because that's the law. In other words, that's what our masters told us. That's why we believe it. Okay, as I said, it makes absolutely no logical sense to believe in such a thing as an adolescent or a teenager. Okay, and another thing as well, there's no other creature on the face of the earth, which they say it were animals too, right? Evolution, which, I don't believe in evolution. I believe in creation, which the earth is obviously created. There's no such thing as evolution. That's all bunk right there. But hey, let's go with that. Let's just go with evolution. So if there is such a thing as evolution, right? Well, why is it that every other species of animal on the face of the earth, because again, they say we come from monkeys, right? So we're animals too. How is it that every other animal other than us does not have a stage of life that's called adolescence? But we do, though, right? As in, there's a period where, they're not necessarily children, but you see, they're not necessarily adults yet. They're just something, they're in between, right? They're in between being an adult and in between being a child. Right, so they can reproduce and have their own children, but you see, they're not necessarily adults yet. They're still kids. How does that make any sense? That's just the same line of logic as saying, well, there's three genders. I mean, everybody knows there's only male and female. But what about if we say that there's such a thing as a she-male, which there clearly isn't, but let's just say there is, right? Because that's the whole thing of adolescence, right? You have this person they're not necessarily a child, but you see, they're not necessarily an adult. They're like something in between. Right, it's like some type of like Frankenstein stuff. It's like that's not necessarily a kid, but they're not necessarily an adult. They're just like half kid and half adult. You see, it's ridiculous. But everyone believes this. Everybody believes it. Why? Because that's how you were raised. But nobody ever thought to ask a question. It's like, well, maybe this isn't true, considering the fact that everybody but just believed this for 100 years. I mean, wait, if humans existed for 300,000 years on this earth, but for only 100 years, out of that 300,000 years, that's literally, let's look at this. That's 299,900 years that there was no such thing as adolescence. But there's 100 years where this belief has existed, and now it's considered to be an undeniable fact. But yet, for 100% of human history, this belief did not exist. Absolutely ridiculous, but everybody believes this. It makes absolutely no logical sense to believe in such a thing as a teen. All right, I mean, hey, look, it's just a fact, man, that teenagers are young adults. Okay, that's why they can have children, is because they are young adults. Now, of course, because guys are out there like, well, a 15-year-old's brain is going to be different from a 20-year-old's brain, and that's true. You know why? Because as they grow and develop and get older, they learn more skills, and get more, more intelligent, with, how they, think and do things. But guess what? A 20-year-old's brain is not the same as a 32-year-old's brain. A 32-year-old's brain is not the same as a 40-year-old's brain. And a 50-year-old's brain is not going to be the same as a 70-year-old's brain. So you see, you can't just pick and choose, well, their brain is different, so that's the reason. It's like, no, it isn't. Because everybody's brain is different. And this whole belief that you stop developing after, they say, 25, that's all bullshit there. Because you develop and change throughout your entire existence. From the day you're born to the day you die, you will not be the same person. You will constantly change, right? As you grow older, your body changes, becomes older, grows wrinkles on it and whatnot, right? So you're changing, right? You're not going to be the same as you are at 50. When you're not going to be the same at 50 than as you were at 40, if that makes sense, okay? So this belief that you would just magically stop growing or changing at some type of arbitrary number, that's all bunk. That's all bullshit based on logical deduction, okay? So, I mean, as I said, man, there's really no proof that anybody can give there's no argument that can be given to say there's such a thing as an adolescent or a teenager. There is no argument that can be given other than a legal issue, which, again, anything legal or illegal, it's not based upon facts or reality. It's all based upon, civilization's culture. Say, for an example, throughout history, you had certain cultures believed in volcano gods, right? Or the Aztecs, would sacrifice people, so the volcano gods don't get angry, right? Or people in Hawaii would throw people into the volcanoes so the gods don't, they would think that when the volcano erupts, that means the gods are angry at them. So they would throw people in every night just so the volcano doesn't explode, because they would think the gods were mad at them. So the same thing today, it's just on a different context, right? People today believe, everybody under an arbitrary number is not an adult, but everybody over that number is an adult. It's like, well, how does that even make logical sense? I mean, and it's funny because nobody would believe that if I was to let's say this, if I plant a seed in the ground today, and I go out tomorrow and expect to see a fully grown plant in that place, everybody would laugh and think I'm a fool. But guess what? All those people think that when a 17-year-old goes to sleep on the night before their 18th birthday, they go to sleep as a child, but magically they awake as an adult. That's what everybody believes. What type of logic is that based upon? And it's not based upon anything. It's all just made up. There's absolutely no difference. It's funny. Everybody knows that once you're past 18, every birthday, it's just another day that I'm alive for. It's like, well, wait, why is the 18th birthday so special then? Well, what does that have to do? If age is nothing but a number, which is what they agree to, well, then why do we pick ages to say if people are adults at, but if they're not, if they're not that age and they're not an adult? It's not based in reality. It's not based upon fact, not based upon proof, not based upon evidence. It's all just a legal issue. It's again, anything that's legal or illegal is basically just arguing with pixie dust is all it is. Saying, well, this is true because somebody said it's true. All right, so enough on the legality issue because that's all bunk to begin with. Okay, so, I want to bring this up, man. Okay, because if you go just 100 years ago, right, just 100 years ago, and during the Industrial Revolution, right, you had children who were, 8 years old, 7 years old, 9 years old, they were working in the sweatshops, right, working in these factories. Okay, and why? Because that was normal back then, right? Hey, you don't work, you no eat, right? You no work, you no eat. All right, so, hey, those children, they had to grow up quick. All right, they had to grow up quick. And that's why even during the Great Depression, what was it, the 1929, and forward from that, they were going out working at, 12, 13 years old. And they were mature enough to handle that responsibility. Why? Because they were all taught from birth, okay, well, this is how we do things, right? And that's how in the ancient world things were done, right? Children would be taught, from when they're young, okay, this is, if you're a girl, this is how you clean dishes, this is how you take care of children, this is how you, please a man, this is how you take care of a household. If it's a boy, okay, this is how you learn to hunt, this is how you learn to use a sword, this is how, you use to, this is how you farm, this is how you build, right? Hey, Jesus was a carpenter, right? He had to learn how to do, work with wood, okay? That's how things were done. But today, children are put in schools and they're not taught shit. They're taught, well, in history this happened. Or, they're taught about, science experiments that were never... Spare me a second here. Taught about science experiments that has no effect on their life. It's like, well, wait a second. Well, why don't we take these kids and why don't we just, teach them when they're young how to handle responsibility? Because if you start to teach them when they're young, man, when they're, let's say, 3, 4, 5 years old, you start to teach them how to be responsible young adults. Well, when they're 13 years old, they're going to be responsible young adults. All right, it just was all based upon how one is raised. And if you're going to say that's not true, well, that's how things were done for all human history. And then if you go to certain parts of the world today, a vast majority of the world still practices things in those ways. Go over to China, children are working in China. Go to India, children are working over there. All right, it's mainly just in America, Mystery Babylon the Great in the Bible, that this belief is prevalent, right? This whole belief in a teenager. There's no such thing as a teenager. All right, why are they not adults? How are they not adults? All right, leave out how old they are. Leave that out. All right, why does it matter if they're 15? How are they not adults? If they can have children, right? If they can have sexual relationships with other human beings, right? Other sexually mature human beings, how are they not adults then? How does that make any logical sense? It's like, for an example, if a dog can have, breed with another dog, oh, well, obviously the dog is a grown-up, right? Obviously the dog is an adult because it can, have, offspring, right? Puppies. Or a monkey, right? If a monkey is big enough to breed with another monkey, they can bring forth a chimp, okay? Or a baby monkey, as I call it. Would anybody argue, oh, well, they're not adults yet? It's just for humans. Oh, well, yeah, these two 15-year-olds, oh, yeah, they're capable of, sleeping together or making a baby, but they're not adults yet. Those are kids. Well, how are they kids if they can have kids? And nobody knows. It's just what everybody knows to repeat it. But it's not based on fact. It's not based upon proof or logic. It's just, well, that's the law. It's like, okay, by logical deduction, we can also conclude that unicorns exist because I declare it as a law that unicorns exist. Or if we have a debate, let's say if we have a debate on, oh, I don't know, any topic. Let's say we have a heated debate and we both disagree. Well, what if I was to conclude that I declare it as a law that I have won this debate? So you must agree, okay, that means that he has won this debate. Because again, if you don't agree, well, you don't agree with the law then. So, I mean, I'm just being sarcastic, but, it just shows how retarded some people are, man. Nobody actually thinks about these things. And again, it's a fact that 70% to 80% of all teens are sexually active before the age of 18. So why is that wrong? I mean, don't you think that, for example, just like every other creature on the face of the earth, once their bodies begin to have sexual feelings, they engage in those sexual feelings. So why is it wrong for human beings to do the same thing? And nobody knows. It's just, well, that's what it is. Like, okay, well, why is that? I mean, don't you think that if 70 to 80% of all teens are sexually active, don't you think that means that the creator of the world actually intended for them to engage in those activities? I mean, hell, if sexual sin is one of the greatest sins you can commit in the Bible, right? Sexual sin is among one of the greatest sins of all. So why would the Lord give children sexual feelings if he did not intend for them to enact on those feelings? Why did the Lord make 13-year-old boys and girls, 14-year-old boys and girls have sexual feelings towards one another if he did not intend for them to engage in those sexual feelings with one another? Obviously he intended for that. Obviously the Most High God intended for children, to have sex once they hit puberty. Okay? Because the word puberty means to be an adult. That's what the word means by its etymology, if you look it up in the English dictionary. As I said, a lot of you cats that think you know a whole lot, man, nigga, look, you all cats, y'all don't know a whole lot. Okay, that's all I'm going to say, man. And excuse my stronger language here. All right, maybe I should watch what I say. So excuse me. Sometimes certain things slip out. So, no offense. No offense. Hey, sometimes you can't catch your tongue. Anyway, I digress. It's just, in conclusion, right? In conclusion, it's like, well, how are teens not adults? They look like an adult, they act like an adult, in every shape and form they are adults. It's just legally they're not, right? In other words, it's just based on what's made up, they're not. But in every other way, they are. So you see, this is why teens act up and, act against their parents. Is why? Because they really want to do stuff on their own. They no longer want to be treated as kids. Okay, I remember, man, there's one time, man, when I was 12 years old, I remember my brother had because he was like 4 years old, he had a party at, what was that, the Dino Cafeteria what is that? What's that? Not Disneyland. Downtown Disney. There's I believe it's T-Rex Cafe. Some of you might know what I'm talking about. But he had his birthday party there, right? So they had these stuffed animals there. So my mother got one for everybody and one for me. So you had to go through and stuff it, put your name on it and everything. And again, I was 12 years old, right? I was pissed off, man. It's like, no, I don't want that shit. I don't want to do that. Why? Because I'm a man. I don't want to do that. Right? I am an adult. I don't want to do this childish stuff. Why was I like that? Why? Because I was a man then. I was a man at 12 years old. That's why your testes, right? They grow hair around them, and they start to produce, semen, right? Which is what? That if that gets into a woman, that can get, make her pregnant, which makes baby. So why did the Most High God give boys and girls who are 13, 14 years old sexual feelings? And why would he do that if he did not intend for them to engage in those feelings? Nobody knows. It's just, well, that he didn't know. It's like, okay, the scriptures say that all the creation of the Lord was perfect. That's what the scriptures say in the book of Genesis, that all the creation of the Lord was perfect. Right? The scriptures say what? Be fruitful and multiply is what the scriptures say. So, I mean, why would the Lord give children sexual feelings towards one another if it's a sin for them to engage in that? Because remember, sexual sin is among one of the greatest sins of all in the Bible. So why would the Most High God give children sexual feelings if he did not intend for them to engage in those sexual feelings? And nobody knows. It's just, well, I suppose that's pretty weird, but it's just a law. I mean, come on. By logical deduction, anybody who's actually listened to this video and everything I said, clearly they would have to agree that, yeah, I mean, going by science, history, human biology, and all the information, yeah, teenagers have to be young adults, and they're young adults, okay? Of course, they're not going to be as mature and as responsible as a fully grown adult. That's why you develop and change over your whole entire life. A 20-year-old man is going to be different from a 40-year-old man. A 40-year-old man is going to be different from a 60-year-old man. Okay, 12-year-old is going to be different from a 20-year-old. But you know what? They're young adults. They're growing into being fully grown adults. But the fact of the matter is still the same. Okay, that once a child hits puberty, that means that they are now a adult. Okay, and it is a fact, and anybody that disagrees, well, you either have to provide historical information to refute that otherwise, and you must also provide words, the meaning of words, to refute that. And I don't want to hear any of that legal bullshit, because all that is made up. It's all made up. I could also say that unicorns exist and declare it's a law, so you must agree, okay, well, yeah, that means unicorns exist then, because legally he said it does. It's like, okay, it's like, okay, so what if I said that, where my gender is, I'm a spaceship. What if I said that I am a spaceship? It's like, oh, okay, well, the law says that we have to let him go by that then, so we got to identify him as a spaceship. I mean, come on, this is absolutely insane what's going on right now, man. It boggles the mind how retarded some human beings are. It really does. It's just absolutely unbelievable. So, me, from my own personal experience, I was absolutely a mature, responsible young adult at 14, 15, 16 years old. So why was I restricted from engaging in my adult life? Why must I be forcibly held against my will for years of my life, and kept in a teen culture, as they call it, in a, teen 2.0, right? Why should I be held back and treated as a kid when I am ready to be an adult? And nobody knows. It's because, you see, it's all just based upon what everybody believes. Okay, so anyway, that's gonna, conclude my rant there. Okay, anybody who disagrees, I ask of you to address the information I have presented in this book. Not this book, I mean this video, which, by the way, I am working on a book. I'm doing the, may I use the word, copy of it right now, right, or the pamphlet, as I call it, and probably pronouncing the word correctly, incorrectly, I should say. But yeah, I'm working on a book, so I suppose I can say that. But yeah, in this video, I hope this information has been helpful, and it makes you double think of these things. Okay, so anybody who made it this far into the video, put hashtag MrBeast in the comment section down below, just to see if anybody made it this far. And anyway, that's going to conclude the video. And I thank everybody for watching. And, yeah, share this video, right? Actually help, other people think. Okay, and the more people that we get this message to, maybe we could actually make a change, in the society, right, for the better. Because as I said, what we can do is, somebody might say that, well, teens are not mature enough. Well, how about we give them a government-administered test, and to let them show if they actually are capable. If they are capable of being adults, well, why don't we just let them be adults? And if they fail at the test, okay, well, then they're not ready yet. Then they'll try again next year. Okay, why should we just restrict everybody because of their age? I mean, don't you think that would make somebody angry and depressed if you were just restricted from an activity based on how old you are? For any other group of human beings, that would be called discrimination, right? Age discrimination. But for this one group of human beings, it just, oh no, they have to be restricted. But for any other group of human beings, that would be called age deprivation, I believe the word would be called. It could be mistaken. But anyway, I hope that video was edifying. I'm going to say shalom.